Me. I'm going to be reading from a collection of half essay, half poetry that's coming out soon called Art in Time. It's 20 essays on 20 different artists. And in it, I was trying to get to be able to make some statements, think about art in terms of art historical modes, at the same time keeping the openness of lyric poetry that allows gaps for the unsaid to come in, allows ambiguity to do its most. So at times it's spliced, at times it's fused, and it was frankly great fun to try and work with these two modes. I chose landscape artists who are all working in ways that keep landscape fluid, that avoid some of the traps of traditional landscape art, such as close framing, the accusations of appropriation, anthropomorphization, which are often all too appropriate, as well as the binaries that a lot of traditional landscape art reinforces, such as inner, outer, nature, culture, subject, object, to try instead to work with an inclusive perspective where the subject recognizes herself as part of the scene that's being depicted, that a fluidity and an overflow are always appropriate in terms of looking at landscape and recognizing its limitlessness, including the observer. So just a little bit of framing in terms of that. I chose three, these are kind of excerpts from three of the essays, and I chose them because they all have something to do with England. Two English artists, neither of which currently lives in England, and an Algerian artist who currently lives in London, and I'll give brief thumbnail sketches of them. I'm going to be sharing my screen. This allows me to distract you all with really pretty pictures. So maybe I'll just go and leap right in, hoping that share screen works. Okay, good. This is a piece by Zineb Sedira, who is an Algerian artist born in '63, and she studied at the Slade and at Central St. Martin's. She now lives in London. She works a lot with history and family history, etc., and a lot with installation, a lot with video. This piece is called Lighthouse in a Sea of Time, and it's about the lighthouses on the Algerian coast. And I'm going to reduce my little frames here so that I don't have to look at myself talking. Okay. Zineb Sedira, Lighthouse in a Sea of Time. Part 1. The piece opens at night with an oddly bright amber bird flying by against a background of dark hills. This first part of the work consists of 4 screens on which moving images of short duration are intermittently projected. The bird appears on the screen in the lower right. The 4 screens often show echoes, often enlarged details of other screens, just slightly offset in time and scale. Another bird passes and then is enlarged on the screen to the left, at which point we see that, in fact, it's actually a patch of light rippling across the facing cliff at regular intervals. Images flow and juxtapose across the screens. Sometimes all are occupied at once. Sometimes only 1 or 2 or 3. And then it's dawn. Very calm, with clouds building up out to sea. A chain link fence runs down to the shore with a bird perched on almost every pole. Cap Seagley Lighthouse, built in 1906 along a relatively uninhabited stretch of coast some 100 or so miles from Algiers. Its light shines 25 miles out to sea. From that high up, you can see far down the coast and the endless waves, the rhythm of days. Another dawn. Someone flicks a curtain open across a brilliant window. Another window, this one spotted with rain. is echoed on the next screen by rain now running down in streams. Evening, seen through the rotating panes of the lamp, its shadow cast and seeking a place to land. And then the scale shrinks, and we're looking at a pair of binoculars with French windows reflected in one of the lenses. A white boat passes far offshore. In fact, it's the only time we see a vessel out at sea, which seems ironic as, of course, boats and ships are the only reasons that a lighthouse exists. There are 27 lighthouses along Algeria's 750-mile coastline, all with their keepers working in a rhythm of relay and collaboration to carry out a wide range of functions, all focused on the night. For that, of course, is when a lighthouse comes alive. Part 2, the life of a lighthouse keeper. It's a job that, in much of the world, is now handled remotely and automatically. So in this project, Zeynep Sedira is also documenting a disappearing way of life, such as that of Karim Outremark, also known as Cremo, now in his early 50s, who has been a lighthouse keeper at Cap Sigli since 2005. His story is striking. Having, when times were tough, taken to camping in a small stone hut below the Cap Sigli lighthouse, he began wondering about the life of the lighthouse keepers, and after much observation, decided that it was just an absolute dream. And so it became his dream. And though the details of the story are not given in the film, he did, in fact, become one of the keepers of the Cap Sigli lighthouse. We're in the presence of a man who is, I want to say happy, but that's too frivolous a term. This is a man who has arrived at what he calls paradise. He's a painter and often spends the entire morning drawing, then paints at night, and a fisherman when the sea is calm. His boat is blue, the same blue as the sky, and as the shutters and doors of the building where they live. I will never move out of the Cap Sigli lighthouse, he says. He speaks of the peace and of the wild landscape that he feels is a part of him. I will never leave here because I am here in the sense that it is what rather than where I am. Cremo washing the huge windows of the lantern room, his sweeping gestures over the glass, a kind of choreographed semaphore, which is indeed a signaling, but this time inward, in toward the great lamp. The cleaner the windows, the farther the light. He says that they sleep with one eye open. In fact, all the keepers sleep facing a window that looks directly out on the light because a break in its rhythmic sweep will wake them up. That's often in winter when there are power cuts and shortages. Insufficient electricity can cause the lamp to stop turning, and then they have to climb up to the top and turn it by hand for the rest of the night. They have visitors from time to time. He often asks them to stay for lunch or dinner. They sign a register with their name, the date, and any comments they wish to make. Très heureux d'avoir visité ce phare. Many thanks for your hospitality and the chance to see your beautiful coastline. And from the poet Tahar Jabout, I didn't know that between Asfoun and Behera there was such a miraculous place, which teaches us that a faraway spot can also be the center of the world. Part 3, La Monte. A spiral staircase. The video begins with long upward views of the entire extent, the ascent, photographed so that it's just slightly offset. The mar in that perfection keeps the whole thing in motion so that the stairs never end. It opens with Zeynep Sedira walking up to the Cap Sigli lighthouse. We see her arriving through her reflection in a glass cabinet that faces the door. She starts climbing, counting each step, stopping from time to time for breath. The camera follows her from the top. Elsewhere, there are stills of the same staircase taken from the bottom, looking up at the ceiling of the tower and at the light shining down from its center.